Breaking news, Auburn has finally done it. They have fired Bryan Harsin. This coming as news that the Tigers are set to hire a new athletic director at Mississippi State's Jack Cohen, according to 24/7 Sports. Harsin almost fired in the offseason, almost fired a couple of different times during this season. Some wondered if maybe they were going to let him play out the string. Auburn 3-5. They've lost 4 straight. He was 9-12 since taking over the job before the 2021 season. Let's get Brandon Marcello in here, 24/7 Sports national college football writer, but also spent many a year covering the Auburn Tigers. My question is, why now? Why not a few weeks ago after the loss to LSU? Why not in the offseason? It seemed like they were going to be moving on at some point. Why right now?
Timing and the sweeping changes that are going on with the athletics department as a total entity. And that starts with the athletics director. We reported 24/7 Sports about a half hour ago that John Cohen at Mississippi State had accepted an offer to become Auburn's athletics director. And not less than half an hour later, the decision's made. Bryan Harsin is out. He has been fired. They're allowing the new AD to make the decisions on how this program is going to look under their watch. And John Cohen knew it was very clear to him they had to make a change with the football coaching staff there. And now they're going to start a national search immediately. Auburn wanted to wait until they got an AD in place. That happened. And boy, they waited about half an hour to make that.
What went so wrong for Harsin at Auburn?
I think the better question is what went right, because that would be easier to answer. Everything went wrong there. And I hate to say that. It's not really my type of stance to go out there and just say everything went wrong, but everything did go wrong there. Recruiting is at its worst that it's been there since I can remember. And for that matter, if you look at the numbers, really in the modern internet recruiting era, that goes back to 1998. They have done nothing there to improve things. In fact, things have gotten worse over the last 6 months there with recruiting. That right there was enough of a fireable offense. Then you take into consideration, obviously, what we're seeing on the field, a listless team with a defense that's been regressing week to week to week. They've allowed 40 points or more in more games this season than they ever have in any single season in their history. And they've got 4 games remaining on the schedule. The offense is terrible. They don't know who their quarterback is week to week. And you take all that into consideration, and Bryan Harsin is someone who came from west of the Mississippi River. He has never coached on any level east of the Mississippi River. And I know you're like, well, what's that matter? It matters in the SEC, and it matters at a place like Auburn. He came in, guy with a lot of pedigree at Boise State, and that Chris Peterson free. Problem is he had no connections in the Southeast. He came in there wanting to do things his way, which is fine by any coach to do. But he came in there and wanted to do things so drastically different and would take no advice from anybody, no feedback. And he kind of cornered himself into this corner where it's my way or the highway. And guess what? His way just does not work at Auburn. And he continued to dig a deeper hole there. And he made enemies quickly. And you better be successful quickly if that's the case. And here we are. Less than 2 years after being hired, he's been fired there. I think it's not difficult to say this. He is the worst coach in Auburn football history.
That's quite the statement. And now the question is, where do you go? And I guess you've cut off half the country. You said it's got to be somebody that's coached east of the Mississippi, maybe even more specifically the Southeast. Who are the guys on Auburn's wish list right now?
The number one candidate will be Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. He will be the number one guy. And I can tell you this because John Cohen, coming from Mississippi State, very familiar with what Lane Kiffin's obviously done at Ole Miss. But here's the number one thing. He has been a killer in the transfer portal. He calls himself the transfer portal king. Auburn needs immediate help on that football program. They can fix a lot of their issues through the transfer portal. It won't be a overnight rebuild, but a man like Lane Kiffin can come in there, fix things, get it back on the right track almost immediately. They need a coach like that to do it. John Cohen, very familiar with that. Also, Auburn will offer a much larger NIL base than Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin has complained about that publicly and privately at Ole Miss about their NIL situation. Auburn's in a position right now, based off my sourcing this past week and reporting this story, they have at least $11 million piled up in NIL money right now, ready to go to help that football program. And that is only going to increase over these next coming weeks and these coming months. Whoever they try to go after as a coach, they're going to want someone who can work that transfer portal, is a killer recruiter, and they're going to promise them the world when it comes to NIL.
How about Deion Sanders? Is that a name that Auburn is legitimately going to look at?
I think that one's going to be a more difficult sell for the Auburn base, especially the boosters there. But John Cohen, I'm told, is going to have full control over this coaching search. He's been provided a lot of assurances from the president there, Chris Roberts, that, listen, we're not going to run things as they've done here at Auburn in the past. You're going to be a singular voice. The buck stops with you. You're going to be able to make your own decisions here. I'm not sure, though, how he sees Deion Sanders fitting into that. I will say this, there is a little bit of a push from some people there at Auburn to give Deion Sanders a serious look. Personally, I think it would be a killer hire. I think he would do fantastic at Auburn. I think he would be an immediate upgrade for them, no matter where they had been under Bryan Harsin, but especially in the wake of him. He will be an absolute monster on the recruiting trail, the transfer portal, and obviously trying to get that Auburn brand back up to that championship type level as well in the offseason. But right now, I think that the search starts with a guy like Lane Kiffin, and then you start looking elsewhere potentially. But I do think Deion Sanders is going to get some consideration there. I'm just not so sure that he's the number one option here very early in the process.
Brandon Marcello with us here on HQ from 24/7 Sports as the Auburn Tigers get a new athletic director, and that new athletic director, along with the president, decide right away we are moving on from Bryan Harsin. Much more on 247sports.com. Wall-to-wall team coverage. Your team all the time.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.